Hi, today I'm going to be making 5 SCPs that you guys suggested in the comments on my last Roblox Studio scripting videos, and I'm going to mash them all into one video, and I'll make some chapters so you guys can skip between the SCPs you want to see more easily. And here's a list on screen of everything I'm going to be making, and yep, we're just going to get straight to it. SCP-087, also known as the stairwell, is the endless staircase that goes into the earth for who knows how long. Basically, the further you go down, the more it kind of gets a bit scary and gross, and then eventually you see that guy. So we're gonna make that. Everything great starts with your first part. So let's put that down. A lot of this SCP is just gonna be duplicating the stairs like downwards, so this isn't gonna be too hard to make. You know, I'm starting to realize how scuffed these stairs are. Somehow I've messed it up. What have I done? Maybe making stairs is a bit difficult. Cool, we now have a full 087 kind of dealio going on, and of course just like that. There we go. And we can descend the stairs. See how far down, it's pretty deep. Very spooky. Now we'll make a new design for the stairs, a second design. This will have a bit more like a... We could make it all corroded. What type of materials do we have? We could do rocks. Wow, spooky. Spooky guys. We don't want players to exactly be able to just jump over the ledge, like over the railings. It'll just be a bit too easy. We're gonna restrict that by placing an invisible wall. One. So we're gonna need to make this a bit spooky. So I think we're gonna add some sounds. I think one of the big parts about this SCP is that it has crying, I think. So we'll find a crying sound effect. I'm thinking that we can do some scripting so that when you get to like a point where there could be new paths, but they're not always open. And there will be a script that does a random number, and depending on the number, maybe between 1 and 3, it will open up a new path that you can take, which will be optional. It could be, and it'll just like branch off and it'll go somewhere. Okay, here we have a script that is getting a random math number between 5 and 10, and another random number between 1 and 3. It then does a wait for the cooldown, waits for that in seconds, whatever calculated, and then it resets all the blocks' transparencies to 0 so that we can all see them, and then it will go through these ifs to see what route it's going to do, and that's decided on this random here. So it can decide between 1 through to 3 routes, so 3 routes total. And this is how we will handle the new routes popping up in 087. Obviously, we're going to make this random timer much larger. Can collide is equal to false, so that we can actually walk through it. So I'm gonna make some new routes for 087. Okay, we have got 3 new locations. Just a grass staircase, a staircase with water in it, and a weird little snowy area with a window that looks into like an upside down room. So, we will get these blocks in place now. Okay, one of the last parts of this SCP will be the very bottom of the normal staircase, which, I'm gonna be honest, it's just gonna be like a kill on touch. Alright, we're doing that. The next SCP we're going to make is SCP-268, a hat that makes the wearer become unnoticeable until either taken off or speaks out loud, making them known/seen. How we would script this would be that the player would put the hat on, make their whole body invisible, and if they were to take the hat off or speak in chat, it would make them visible again. But first we need to make a model, and here we are in Maya. Don't worry, I didn't spend $3,000 directly just for Maya. This comes with my university course. Now, I am not the best 3D modeler, so if you do have, if anyone is like experienced and has feedback or tips and tricks and whatever, feel free to leave them in the comments. Okay, I'm seeing different colors here, and I'm getting a bit worried. It blew itself up somewhere. Upside down faces. Yeah, we're gonna need a Control Z a bunch. I think that works. Alright, so here's our thingy. If I remember correctly, I do automatic. So it looks like kinda bad, but like we can try fix that. What we kinda want is that all the squares are like the same size and like not going crazy in different directions. Unfold. Now it looks better. And then you want to make it a bit smaller. No, it still looks scuffed. What did I do? Did I do something wrong? We're gonna run with that. We're gonna run with that. SCP-268 model. Export selection. Import 3D maybe. I don't know if I have to click any of this stuff, but I'm gonna click import. Okay. Wow. Okay, I mean this is like what we want. I doubt just slapping it on will. Okay, you know what? Slapping it on did kind of work. Okay, we got this hat. I use flippin' Maya for like 30 minutes, and now I can't flippin' use Roblox anymore. Here we go. Okay, we have finished scripting. SCP-268, at the moment it is a tool, and inside the tool there is a regular script, a bool value called wearing, a local script, a remote event, and the model itself, which is handle, which has a sound effect in it. Inside the script, it is getting all the variables, has a cooldown timer so that the player can't spam the SCP. This is a function for unequipping the hat. Set the wearing value to false so it's no longer being worn. Plays the sound effect. Makes everything visible. Here is the function for equipping the hat. Pretty much everything invisible. And it also starts a wait timer, so you can only wear the hat for 10 seconds, after which it will check if the player still has the hat on, and then it'll unequip the hat, and the unequip function, which will go through this. So this is when it gets activated. So when you're holding the SCP and you click it, it will check if the wearing value is false, so if it's not being worn and there's no cooldown, you equip the hat function. If it's unequipped and the wearing value is true, so if it's being worn and there's no cooldown, then it will unequip it, the unequip function. And then we have a remote event which ties into chat function. So I've made it so if the player talks while wearing the hat, they will have a remote event get fired because it detects the chat, only if the hat is being worn, in which it will trigger this unequip cooldown timer. And I believe that's all, so now we can do a little test. We equip it, we're invisible. We unequip the tool. So now, if we do this, and we wait out the timer, yep, we can't. So, if we talk in chat like, hi, we can see it detects the chat, but it did not fire the remote event because the hat is not on. If we do this, and then let's say fart, I've made myself known. Our next anomaly is SCP-1200, a set of chewing gums that cause different effects. On the wiki, there are only 7 mentioned, so I'll only be scripting those ones. Okay, we have finished making SCP-1200. I've tried to make these as closely related to how they are on the wiki. The only one that really is kind of different is the first one we're going to look at. SCP-1212. Here's the design, it's got the factory logo on it. And when you eat it, it deletes the item and makes you turn green. In the wiki, it's meant to just make you taste everything as lemons, but I can't really do that in Roblox. The next one we will look at is this one, SCP-1215. It's a yellow. When you eat it, it makes everything bright. Around maybe 20-30 seconds. There we go. And it also changes the player to become yellow. Now this one is SCP-1229. Does the following. Rearranges the player. And the player will now remain like this forever. I mean, the next instance is 1230. It is blue. And when you eat it, it will cause clones to start appearing around you. It only spawns 6 clones. One of them might have fallen out of the map. But these clones will stay around for about 30 seconds before destroying themselves. Moving on to the next, SCP-1200-58. It is white, and when you eat it, you get transported to this big grassy plain with white pillars, and you've got some NPCs you can talk to. Now all these NPCs react as if you've had history with them, and the player is stuck here for about 60 seconds before being teleported back to the containment chamber. Now, this isn't the only thing that happens. So we eat it, and it appears this thing. Now it does make a noise when it spawns in, it's just we can't hear it, and when the player comes back it will disappear and make an exploding noise. Our next instance is 1200-62. Its design is simply just red. Eating it at first appears nothing happens. To an outside observer it looks as if a red entity appears and starts attacking the player, dealing 0 damage, then quickly disappearing. After a little bit the player turns red and their walk speed is drastically reduced. Slowly after time the player will start to lose health, right up until death. The final instance is 1200-83. Its design has a transparent-like effect, and when you eat it, nothing happens. The fourth SCP I'm going to be making is SCP-1230, a green hardcover book that displays the phrase, "A hero is born," on the first page, while the rest of the pages are all blank. Once a person falls asleep, they appear in a world where they are considered the hero. My plan for this SCP is that the player gets teleported to a boss battle arena, where they must quickly grab a sword and fight an evil monster that approaches them. If the player gets damaged enough to the point of almost death, or defeats the enemy, they'll immediately be teleported back to the location they read the book. Here I am creating the idle and swing animations for the sword. In the script for the sword, we have important variables for components like the animation tracks, sound effects, damage, cooldown and bool values. The equip function detects the equip of the tool. It then gets the player's character animator, loads the idle sword animation to an empty variable called hold track, and then plays it. The unequip function does the opposite, detecting the unequip of the tool and then stopping the animation track, then setting the hold track to nothing. When the player has the sword equipped and left clicks, the sword activation function runs, playing a swing animation and a sound effect, as well as setting 2 bool values to true. Debounce is used to prevent the player from spam clicking the sword. Switching it to true means it will no longer be able to run this part of the function, until it's set back to false, in which it does by itself after the cooldown. Activating the swinging ball allows for another function to run. When set to true, the blade of the sword will now deal damage if it detects hitting an object with a humanoid. It will also play a sound effect, then set its swinging value to false. This is to prevent the function from running multiple times upon hitting another player, and instead only damages once per swing. On to modelling and scripting the SCP itself. The book will have 2 separate models, one being open and another closed. When the player clicks the book, both a script in the SCP and a local script in the starter GUI detects the click. The SCP script sets a debounce to prevent retriggering, plays sound effects, swaps the book's transparencies to appear as if it opened, and starts a 13-second timer. During those 13 seconds, the local script fades a black overlay over the player's screen to simulate blinking and slowly falling asleep. When the timer ends, the player and a cloned monster are teleported to the dream world. A clone of the player is left behind, with particles coming out of their head to show they are sleeping. The player is now forced to fight the monster and will only be teleported back to the real world if they manage to kill it or if the player's health falls below 10. Either or will activate this return to chamber function. Finally, setting the debounce to false, allowing the SCP to be interacted with again. final SCP on our list is SCP-457, a sentient being composed of fire. My idea for this SCP is that it will have different stages it can enter the more it burns people, eventually being able to clone itself. The chamber will also be equipped with working sprinklers and breach detection, but first we're going to have to design and create the chamber. Alright, we have finished making SCP-457. So now I'll do a little dive into the mechanics of SCP-457, and we'll start with the anomaly itself. So SCP-457 is a humanoid NPC, however their body is invisible and they've got the fire effect on their root part. SCP-457 has some scripts, has an attack script and a behavior script, and it also has some energy level integers and a bunch of sound effects. So first of all, the attack, it's pretty much the same as I've been using other NPCs. So the idea for 457 is that when it hits a player, it will gain energy and give the hit player a fire, so set them on fire. So here it gets a folder in replicated storage called fire effect, and it will apply that to the player. It will also, right here, damages the player by 25 health, and it gains 15 energy. That goes to its energy value. If we look at the behavior script, this is what handles the different levels that SCP-457 can enter. So currently this is level 1. And it can grow in size depending on the energy value it's currently at. So down here we can see that in action. So starting off at the bottom, the SCP-457, if it's below 20 energy value, it will be set to level 1. Once it reaches above 20, it will become level 2, 50, level 3, greater than 85, 4, energy value above 100 equals level 5, and above 200 equals level 6. Looking at how the levels affect the SCP, this function detects a change in the energy level integer, checks the value, then applies the correct stage level to the SCP. This may cause sound effects, the SCP to grow or shrink in size, its humanoid body to become visible, and or a change in movement speed. When it reaches level 6, it will clone itself, and its energy value will be set to 21, which is set to stage 2. So looking at the fire script in replicated storage, it is a folder that is scripted in SCP-457. It is placed into the player's root part, humanoid root part, and the moment it's put in there, this script will automatically start playing. Because it's in the humanoid root part, the sound effects will be attached to that and play from the root part. And here it will start playing it. So this fire particle will be then attached to the humanoid root part so that we can actually see it. Because if it stays in the folder, we can't see it. It will then do a random math between 1 and 3 and then play one of the 3 screams just so it's got some variety. And then we've got a little kind of a loop here that will then deal damage to the player, 6 damage to the player 8 times with a 1 second interval. And then once it's gone through that, it then destroys the fire particles, destroys the fire, and then destroys the folder. So all of it is destroyed. Moving on to the chamber design, we've got a control panel with an inner door button to open this door. Chamber sprinklers, so in here we've got some sprinklers. Emergency sprinklers, which are these up here, which is this for area, and then a breach detection. Looking at the script, we've got a bunch of variables, and this is for the chamber sprinkler system. So it gets a mouse click. When you click on this, it will play a sound effect, check if the sprinklers are on. If not, turn them on. Sound effects. Change the transparency and sets a radius enabled to true. So this is a script which we'll look at in a second that controls the sprinkler water radius. And then it will just turn the particle emitters for the water on. Else, if the sprinklers are already on, it will instead just turn everything off. And for the emergency sprinklers, it's the exact same thing, except it's got its own separate function. The reasons for that is because the breach detection will automatically turn on the function for the sprinklers, and then the final click is deactivating the automatic breach detection alarm. Alright, looking at the sprinklers, we can go into control panel, and chamber and emergency sprinklers both use the same script, so we'll just look at one of them. Here it uses a table to collect all the things that are touching the radius of the sprinkler. And the sprinkler radius is just an invisible object. Here we can just see it's just an object that you can walk into. It's a part, and when you go inside of it, when you touch the part, your character gets checked if it has a humanoid or if the name is SCP-457, and then it'll add you to the active table, and if you leave, then it will just get rid of it. This function is a loop. While true, it will check for if one of the things is SCP-457, it will check its energy value. It'll get its energy value. If it is above 10, it will then minus 20 energy from it. And then it will have a little wait, and then it'll do it again and again as long as it's inside the radius. So this is how SCP-457 slowly loses its energy value while it's inside the sprinklers. And for the player, it will detect if it's got the fire folder in it and the fire effect, in which it will just destroy it. So first we can have a little look at the control panel. We can hit E on the button, open the door and close it. We can also hit the chamber sprinklers and set off an alarm, and we can see the little effect. The chamber emergency sprinkler. So the radius for the emergency sprinkler is just this entire little rectangular portion of the room. And finally, for the breach detection, you can see we can click it, does nothing. The breach detection is just a part that is here, and it just detects if SCP-457 walks into it. If it does, it just turns on alarm and the emergency sprinkler. So let's go test with SCP-457. We can get set on fire. See that we're on fire. Eventually, we'll stop being on fire. And let's try and grow SCP-457 a bit. So it's actually got to stage 4 now. It's much more bigger, we can see its body. And we can try see the chamber sprinklers in action. Here we go. Unfortunately, the AI for this SCP isn't that advanced. You can see it only just tries to go in a straight line, which is unfortunate. I'm not the greatest scripter for AI, and I don't want to just really copy and paste other people's code. So it might be like a thing I have to do some learning on for a bit, because it does seem pretty complicated. We can now test out the breach detection. So if we get it to leave the chamber and come out this door, just like that. That's the emergency breach detection system, and we can test its cloning in action as well, so let's do that. See, it's much faster now. And right there it has turned into 2 SCP-457s. This video took a while to make, so if you enjoyed it, giving the video a like would be very awesome sauce. I'm unsure if I'll be continuing this series, as I have plans to move away from Roblox Studios and begin coding games outside of it, like on Unity or Unreal Engine. I'm also thinking of potentially starting a project on making my own SCP game, so if you guys have any ideas for one, feel free to leave them in the comments. But anyway, thank you guys for watching.